Hi everyone, I'm Diane, and we're going to talk today about a great indoor-outdoor family hobby, bird watching. That's something you can do through the window or something you can do sitting outside in your backyard. And it's also something the whole family can do. So it's a fun hobby. And today I'm going to tell you how to do it. And I'm also going to talk about the wonderful birds that you can and most likely will see in your backyard. Little birds, big birds, busy birds. You might even be lucky enough to get a bird to build a nest in your backyard, and then you would have baby birds too. So let's start. So, backyard birding is easy. It's one of the easiest hobbies to do from home. As I said, you can sit at a window and look out, or you can sit outside and do it. Some of you may already have bird feeders. In that case, you may already have a favorite bird that visits your backyard. If you don't, maybe you'll learn about some of the birds today and you'll pick a favorite bird and look for it and see if it comes to your yard. In this slideshow, I'm going to talk just about the most common birds that come to your yard. There are many, many birds on Long Island, so you may see other birds that are not covered in this show. But I'll tell you a little bit about each bird that we talk about today, and maybe a quiz at the end will keep you interested. We will talk first about the birds that stay with us all year long. That means the birds that survive through the winter and that build nests and have families and stay with us all summer to raise those families. So we'll talk about those year-round birds first. The blue jay, that big, loud, noisy blue bird that many of us have seen not only in our backyards but all over the place on Long Island. They are a beautiful bird, but believe it or not, their feathers are really not blue. The pigmentation, or the way that the feathers reflect light, are different in a blue jay, and they only reflect blue light, but their feathers are really gray. You can look it up and check out how that works. But blue jays, they're noisy because they're also a bird that warns other birds of danger. They're like an alarm system. They'll warn other birds if there's a cat nearby or a hawk nearby, or even if you might be walking by. And blue jays love peanuts, and they will compete with the squirrels in your backyard for those peanuts, and that can be a lot of fun to watch. Now let's talk about that pretty red bird that you see in your backyard. That's the northern cardinal. And the northern cardinal, they have great love affairs each year. They stay together as Mr. and Mrs. Cardinal all year long, but each spring they reinforce their marriage. Sort of like going out to dinner. The male will feed the female. He will come to the feeder and take a seed, and then go to the female and feed her. And that's their way to have dinner again and to say how much they want to be together. And cardinals love safflower seed. So if you get that, you'll be sure to get cardinals coming to your backyard. And as you can see, the male is all red, but the female is sort of a pretty soft gray and brown with reddish highlights. I think she's just as pretty. So now we come to a tiny little bird called the black-capped chickadee. Tiny, only about a couple of inches big, but a great big loud voice. He makes a sound that goes something like chickadee-dee-dee. And it's a warning call also, just like the blue jays. The chickadee will warn other birds of danger, but they'll also tell other birds where there's good food to be had as well. So usually, once you get chickadees to your backyard, you'll get many other birds also. Chickadees travel in little groups, and each group has a pack leader, just like in a gang. So, the next bird we have is the tufted titmouse, a pretty gray and white bird, a little bit bigger than the chickadee. When they get nesting material for their nests in order to raise their young, they like to line the nest with cotton and string and dog hair or cat hair. And I very often put those supplies out for them in the springtime and watch to see if they will come and take that and go fly to their nest. It's a fun thing to do in the spring. And I have a quick story to tell you about that. One day I was sitting out on my balcony very quietly, sitting next to some nesting material I had put out, and a titmouse kept coming and taking that nesting material, and then all of a sudden he started to look at me, and the next thing I knew, he jumped on top of my head. Now I sat very, very still, and he started to pull my hair out, and then he flew off with a bunch of my hair in his beak. It was the funniest thing to feel this bird walking on top of my head. And he came back and did it again. Can you imagine? It was so much fun. The next bird we see here is the mourning dove. Now that's mourning as in being very sad, not mourning as the time of day. And the reason that they're called mourning, meaning sad, is because they have a very soft coo, coo type call that people thought sounded very sad, and that's how they got their name. In the next few slides, we'll talk about woodpeckers, and they're called woodpeckers because they tap and bang against the trees and make a drumming type sound. The downy woodpecker, which is this little guy, is the smallest North American woodpecker. And he's not too big, only like maybe 3 or 4 inches, 5 inches at the most. And if you notice, there's one bird that has a red spot on the back of his head and one bird that does not. The male, the boy, is the one that has the red spot. The female, the girl, has no red spot. And woodpeckers, the downy woodpecker and other woodpeckers, all like peanuts. And they like suet, too. Suet is like animal fat that you can buy in the store. The next woodpecker is the red-bellied woodpecker. Now, he's a lot bigger than the downy, almost twice the size of the downy. And he has a great big long bill. So he sometimes can scare other birds away. And all woodpeckers have very long tongues that wrap all the way around the inside of their head. And the reason they have long tongues is so that they can stick their tongue way into holes in the trees where they can grab insects to eat, which they like. But as all woodpeckers do, they love peanuts and suet, just like the downy. Okay, another member of the woodpecker family is the northern flicker. Look how pretty he is when he flies. You only see that yellow when he is flying and his wings are spread. Now, the northern flicker loves ants. He loves to eat ants, but he also likes to lay on top of an anthill. When he does that, the ants chase away the bugs on his body that make him itch. He also likes to sunbathe. Sometimes you will see a flicker out in the middle of your yard in the sun with his wings spread out. That also kills those little bugs that make him itch. So you can see a flicker either anting or sunbathing. Here we have the American goldfinch. Now, some people think he looks like a canary, but he is a goldfinch. And look how different the two birds in those photos are. The yellow, the bright yellow bird, is what he looks like in the spring and summer. And the other, the faded yellow bird, is the way he looks in the winter. Very different. And they really like a little seed called thistle. And now we have the American robin. What a pretty bird he is, and he's a very common bird. We see him on our lawns in the spring pulling worms out. They really, really like worms. And they tilt their head and they hear. That's how they chase the worm. They hear the worm under the ground and know where to go to get it. They also will go fishing. Sometimes on the side of a pond, you might see a robin pulling little fish out of the water. Next we have the house sparrow. Now, you can see house sparrows sometimes in very large groups. A lot of people don't like house sparrows because house sparrows are very aggressive and they will chase other birds out of their nests in order for them to take over that nest and use it themselves. But they are only acting the way nature told them to act, so we can't get mad at them for that. Here we have the house finch. Look at that bill. It cracks the seeds open with that heavy bill. And they're a pretty red and brown bird, but sometimes their color changes depending on the food they eat. If they eat food that has a lot of orange in them, they might look more orange than red. We have two different kinds of wrens that visit our backyard. We have the Carolina wren and the house wren. Now this is the Carolina wren. They have great personalities, and they will nest in just about anything. I have seen Carolina wrens that have nested in an old boot that was left on a front porch, or they might nest in your house plant that's hanging on your front porch, or almost anywhere they will nest. So look around your yard in the summer. Who knows, you might have one nesting somewhere in a very strange place. And the other wren that will nest sometimes in our backyard and come to our feeders is the house wren. And he's just like the Carolina wren with lots of personalities. But look at this photo really close. Do you see anything missing on that bird? If you saw it, good for you. He's missing his tail. I wonder what happened to it. Sometimes birds will lose their tails if a hawk who's chasing them gets too close and grabs the tail. The tail might be torn off, but the rest of the bird will get away. And now we have the northern mockingbird. Now mockingbirds are mimics, and that means that they imitate other birds, and they sing a lot. These birds sing sometimes all night long. Some people will say, "What is that bird that's singing at 2 o'clock in the morning? He's driving me crazy." Well, that would be the northern mockingbird. And the birds that sing late at night like that are birds that are looking for a mate, somebody that they can have a family with. And that's why they're singing. And they love raisins. Sometimes grapes, too. And here we have the white-breasted nuthatch. Now, nuthatches love to run up and down on the branches of the trees or up and down on the trunk of the tree, and they peck almost like a woodpecker, looking for insects in the bark of the tree. But they also love peanuts, just like woodpeckers do. And another nuthatch that we get in the backyard is the red-breasted nuthatch. Sometimes we don't get him as often as we might see the white-breasted because they're not always here every year, but they like peanuts too. We also very often get the brown thrasher in our backyards. Now he's a mimic like the mockingbird and will imitate other birds' songs, but he doesn't do it as often as the mockingbird does. And he also likes raisins and maybe grapes. Now we have the song sparrow. Sparrows are all little brown birds, and they have different colors and markings, and the song sparrow has a dark spot in the middle of its chest. But the song sparrow is very well named because he loves to sing. As a matter of fact, the song sparrow is one of the first birds to start singing in the springtime, and it always means spring to me. The European starling is another bird that a lot of people don't like. They also come in very large groups, and when they do come to your backyard feeder, they're going to eat all the seed. Sometimes it takes them only an hour to go through a whole lot of seed, so a lot of people don't like that. And they like almost any kind of seed, so no matter what you put out, the starlings will most likely eat it. Another black bird that comes to your yard is the common grackle. But he's not only black, he has such shiny feathers, and they change color when the sun hits them. They're iridescent, and they sparkle all different colors, which makes them really, really pretty. They also come in large groups, though, and can eat a lot of seed. And the largest black bird that will come to your yard is the American crow. Now, crows are part of what they call the corvid family, and that family of birds is very, very smart. They know how to use tools out of sticks. They know how to think through problems. They've been tested by researchers, and some researchers believe that maybe they're smarter than any other animal on Earth. And yes, we will get hawks in our backyard. The two most common are the Cooper's hawk and the sharp-shinned hawk. But the Cooper's hawk is with us all year long. And yes, they hunt small birds. That's why they will be in your backyard, not to eat your seed, but to come eat your small birds. That's kind of sad, but it is nature's way. Bigger animals eat smaller animals. And your backyard is a quick meal for them. It's like a McDonald's meal. So, why are bird feeders good? Well, they're good because they make an easy meal for birds. And that can help them through the winter when it is hard to find food. And it can also help them in the summer when they're busy raising families. It's an easy way for them to get food to their youngsters. But remember that birds get food from other places too. So you don't have to worry if you don't fill your feeders all the time. The birds will be okay. It's like a McDonald's to them, like I said about the hawk. It's an easy meal because the food is there, but it can be important as well. And you can put all kinds of different food out. You can put out seeds, fruit, jelly, nectar, suet. Don't forget water. That's very important in the hot summer and also in the winter when water everywhere else is frozen. If you have water out and it's not frozen, if you put a heater in it, they will come to you all winter long. Okay, now we're going to look at the birds that only visit us in the summertime. First, we have the gray catbird. Now, why is it named catbird? It's because the sound that it makes is a variety of different notes with a meow in the middle of it. It sounds just like a cat crying. And these guys love grape jelly. If you put grape jelly out in a dish, you might get catbirds. What's that pretty orange and black bird? It's a Baltimore Oriole. Beautiful birds. And they make a nest that hangs in a pouch. So you may see that hanging from a tree in your yard or a neighbor's yard someday. And they love oranges. Okay, here is the red-winged blackbird. Look at the red patches on his shoulders. That's where he gets his name from. Although sometimes it can be more yellow or more orange than red. And look how different the female looks. She just looks like a big brown sparrow. Very different looking. Now these birds, the males sometimes have lots of different nests going on, which means they have a lot of different families they have to take care of. They've been known to have up to 7, 8, or 9 different nests all over the place. And they have to defend those nests, so they are very brave birds. Now we'll talk about a couple of birds that are only here in the wintertime. First, we have the dark-eyed junco, and he's nicknamed the snowbird because people used to think when he showed up, that meant the snow was coming, because he does like snow, and he is here during the winter when it snows. And even when there's a lot of snow on the ground, he'll show up at your feeder scratching through the snow looking for seeds. And then we have another sparrow, but this one only comes in the winter. This is the white-throated sparrow. You can see from the pictures that he's got a good name because he certainly has a very white throat. And he's nicknamed a leaf scratcher because that's just what he does. He scratches around in the leaves looking for bugs and seeds. And you see where he has the white stripes on his head? Well, some of them have tan stripes instead of white stripes. So there's two different kinds. And finally, we have that second hawk that I talked about, the sharp-shinned hawk. Just like the Cooper's hawk, he preys on small birds and uses your backyard like a McDonald's. But remember, that's nature's way. And these hawks are small hawks. The sharp-shinned hawk is only about as big as the dove, so they're not a really big hawk at all. Okay, so now that I've told you something about the birds you can see back there, all those amazing birds, let's talk about how you actually get started doing bird watching. Well, it's really, really easy. Okay, you can just start with a very simple bird feeder. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can be a dish. It can be a plate. It can be a bucket. It can be anything that you can put seed in. And water. Remember, I talked about the importance of water. And put these things somewhere where it's easy to see from your house so that you can do it when you're inside, or you can take a chair outside and do it out that way too. Either way. And keep an identification book next to you. Again, doesn't have to be a big fancy book, just a simple identification book so that when you see a bird out there, you can look it up and see if you can figure out what kind of bird it is that you're seeing. And maybe a journal right next to your chair by the window where the ID book is, and you can put down each day what you see out there and if you saw a new bird or not. How exciting. You may have seen a chickadee and a titmouse, and then all of a sudden, oh, look, there's a downy woodpecker, and I've never seen him before. A lot of people, a lot of birders keep lists. Do you need binoculars? No. If you want binoculars, you can get some reasonably priced ones through Amazon, but you can just look out your window or just sit in that chair in your yard and look at the birds. And you can see them just fine without fancy binoculars. Bird feeders can be very fancy or very simple. A simple tube feeder, see where the red-bellied woodpecker is? Or a fancy bigger one that all kinds of birds can land on with a squirrel baffle so the squirrels can't get at it. Or a simple one. That one's made from half a grapefruit that's hollowed out and somebody put seed on it and some strings to hang it from a tree. So it doesn't have to be fancy to do the job. Or just throw seed on the ground. That works too. And also water. The same goes. Doesn't have to be fancy, but if you want fancy, that works too. A simple dish on the ground is sufficient. What else can you see in your backyard? Well, squirrels, rabbits, raccoons. You can see all kinds of stuff in your backyard if you look hard enough. Bugs. Some people like bugs. Anything else? Think about it. Take a look around. You'd be surprised. But be aware, the squirrels will come and eat those seeds as well as the birds. And if you put fruit out, take it in at night because the raccoons will come at night for the fruit. Lots of information today. I hope you can remember some of it or all of it. If not, you can always come back and watch this again. But to help your memory along, there are some quizzes coming up. The next few slides, there'll be quizzes with answers on the slides after. And this might help you a little bit. Plus, it might be a lot of fun. If you don't want to take the quizzes and you're leaving, thank you so much for being here today. And if you're going to take the quizzes, good luck. Here's two of our favorite birds, the redbird and the bluebird. And then we have that little black and white bird with the big voice, and that other bird that could sound so sad. So, how did you do? Did you guess the blue jay and the northern cardinal and that cute little black-capped chickadee and the so sad mourning dove? So, this one is a little brown sparrow who loves to sing, a big blackbird that is so very smart, another blackbird that sparkles in the sunshine, and the pretty woodpecker with yellow under its wings. So, did you get them all? That cute little bird that loves to sing, the song sparrow, or that smart American crow, or that sparkly common grackle, and finally the northern flicker. Last quiz. What's the one at the top that sounds meow when it makes its song? And the other sparrow with the white under its bill. So, how did you make out? Did you get and guess the gray catbird that sounds like a cat sometimes? And the white-throated sparrow with that pretty white underneath his bill? Hope you got them both. So, that's it for today. Hope you had some fun, and I hope you did actually learn something. And most of all, I hope you will start to be a bird watcher. It's lots of fun. I've been doing it for a lot of years. And I hope you liked this video. If you did, please check liked so that the library knows you had fun. Take care. Be well. Bye-bye.